Hey peeps, welcome back to my channel and to the next episode of Leaf Templating. In this episode, we are going to implement a navigation where we will be able to navigate between two pages, between the character page we have left off last time and between a new page. And we will not implement a navigation for each page, but we will actually learn in this episode how to isolate certain HTML components into our own template Leaf files and to reuse them in order to have one place to define them and multiple places to use them. Also, we will learn how to architect our Leaf template files a little bit more nicer. Let's dive right into it by putting it over here and start with our last state of the project, which is only the character list. Let's fix for the first, as a first step, the name and call it characters instead, characters. And in our roots, let's have not our index to point to that file or actually return that file, but actually characters. And down here, this one has to be the file name, which is characters. So we got that one out of the way. If we refresh or rerun and then refresh the site, you will not be able to get it, but when we call characters, we do have the list of characters. Now let's define another root that says get, and then we have the index. And what we want to return here is the home page. So basically the page that you have seen that says it's dangerous to go alone, take this. So we are returning a view here as well. And return a try of request view render the index. Let's call it home. All right. Okay, so home file is not there yet, so let's create it. Let's call it home like that, and let's copy over the whole HTML from here. What happened? From characters to home to then, and we will, if we paste it, we will not have the right indentation because we will have to set the syntax coloring first. Let's do that too. And once we paste it in, let's remove the body because all I wanted is actually the HTML structure, the skeleton. I didn't want to type it myself off again. So it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Whoop, this. Take this. Do it. Cool. So that's our home page. If we run the app now again, we can actually go to the index and see it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. How about we implement a navigation? So I know from the top of my head by memory that we can supply bootstrap classes to make it look nicer. So for example, navbar, not navbar. Navbar, we want a dark background because dark mode rocks, and we want it to be sticky top. That's the navigation, and we want two links inside of that navigation. One of each are pointing, one of them is pointing to home and the other is pointing to the characters, right? So one of them is pointing to the index and let's call it home. And the other is, whoops, not nav, sorry, my fault. The other is pointing to characters. So it's characters. And let's call it characters as well. Characters like that. Now, when we refresh the site, we do have a navigation here on the home, and when we tap or click home, we will get redirected to home, or actually directed to home. And if we click characters, we get directed to characters. However, we can't go back from here. And yes, you could just copy and paste that over here as well. And then we have our navigation here and we have our navigation there. But you already guessed it. The problem with that is that once you want to add new links, you will have to add the new link here and the new link in the new file, in the other file, and then also on all the other pages that are actually displaying the navigation. So let's make a new folder and call it, let's say, layout. And let's put all our layout of our page inside here. And let's call the file navigation.leaf. And we want to put the navigation snippet in here. So navigation.leaf, and let's just copy or actually cut it out from here and paste it in here. And once again, we will have to enable syntax coloring in order to have the right indentation in place. So we got the snippet here, and let's remove the snippet from here as well. And now it's about to learn the first leaf tag that enables us to embed that kind of snippet inside of our character and home file. And that is basically just the keyword embed. And then wherever, whatever the file is named, so navigation. However, that one will not work because it looks under the views folder. This embed keyword will always look for the file that you have passed in here in the views folder, but we have it in the views folder and then in another folder called layout. So let's give our embed keyword a hand and let it know where in the views folder it is located. So we have it here, and all we can do is basically embed the same navigation into characters too, so that when we switch to characters, we have the navigation in two places. And when we are starting editing it into something, I don't know, new, where we have another page, it will be just on each page available. And that's already awesome. Let's delete that and let's improve our architecture a little bit further, because you can see we are repeatedly writing HTML head and body inside characters and home, and we are repeatedly using the same link. Let's indent that correctly. And we can refactor that one as well into an own template file. However, this one is different because we cannot just embed it, because where would you embed it, since body is like, we want our content to be inside of body, right? And if we exclude or isolate this whole snippet into an own file without the body, because the body here as well is different from the body on the other from home, we will have to use different keywords in order to do that, or actually different architecture. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a new file here and call it index leaf, for example, let's call it main leaf. I think that name is better. And let's copy the whole thing in here, once again with syntax coloring. And now we want at this place all our content to appear depending on which page we are. On home, we want It's Dangerous to Go Alone. In characters, we want actually our character list to appear inside here. So how are you going to do that? We can do something like, first of all, let's remove everything from here except for the content. So what we can do is this whole content stuff, we can put it into a variable with set, and then name the variable, for example, content or whatever you want, and curly brackets. And inside here, you are going to put your content. You want to be stored in the variable called content. Now, when we refresh the home page, we won't see anything, because this home.leaf file that is rendered right now, all it does is basically just define a variable and put some value to it, but the variable is never used or printed whatsoever. So that's why we have an empty page. However, we can embed the layout main file, right? And when we do that and refresh, we still won't see anything. But when we look up the code, we see that actually the HTML head body structure is included into our home site or home page, because that's what main is actually about, right? It has the body with the spacing even and everything. And now what we want to do is, since this whole snippet is basically with the embed keyword, is basically, instead of it is put in here just like that, right? Under the hood with the keyword embed layout main, it will replace that line with the content of the main.leaf file, which is this one, right? So that means that in here we do have this whole code available, and that also means that there's a variable called content that is exposed within here, and so we could actually get the content from it, the value from the content variable with the keyword get. So set is for setting the variable to a certain value, and get is for getting the variable you have defined with set. It's different from the variables we are passing in here through the through the roots. That's a different way of passing in variables. We are talking about variables we are creating with set. We are able to get the values of these variables with the keyword get. And so since we are having content as a variable exposed within here, we could use get content to actually get whatever is defined here. Now, when we are returning now to the embed, right? This one at this place, we are actually placing the whole thing here. So let's just define here the get content, because once this one is put in here, it has access to content since we are exposing content in here, and then it just works. And the same way we can do it for characters. So basically this whole thing that is inside body, let's put it into a variable called content. And now that we are naming the variables the same way, we can always use the name variable, name content, and stick with content here, because once we are rendering the index file, right? When we look into our roots, once we are calling the index, we are rendering the home file. So it's this one. And in that situation, we are creating a content variable with these values, with that as a value. In the situation where we are rendering the character side, right? Like this one, then we are having creating a variable called content with this value. Now let's also embed with a hashtag. Let's embed the layout main here as well and refresh, and there we go. Now we have abstracted or isolated our architecture of, or actually our page skeleton into an own file. And so we can just reuse it and set the value of content inside each different page that looks actually different, right? It's dangerous to go alone, or the character list. And that way you can even go further and say, oh, let's create another file and call it CSS leaf, right? And all you want to do is in here, just put all your CSS inside. So let's go to main and let's remove the link that is basically right, pointing to a bootstrap CSS that we are downloading. And instead of having all the links defined here in head, all we do is basically say, well, we just want to embed from layout the CSS file, a leaf template, and all our CSS related code is in here. And same goes with JavaScript. If you want to have also your JavaScript included, right? You also can just create a new JavaScript.leaf file and embed it at the bottom of the body, because that's best practice. You could also embed it in the top. And then you have just one place where you add new CSS, one place where you add new JavaScript, and it's available everywhere. And that way, with the folders, you can create even more cleaner architecture in your leaf template files and reuse all the HTML snippets. That's the episode. I hope it was helpful for you. If it was helpful, hit like, because that way you're helping me out. And also let me know in the comment section whether or not you have still questions or topic suggestions for the future Leaf episodes. Also, don't forget to check out the description box, because you can also download every source code of every video I ever do from Patreon and support me doing YouTube full-time, because every dollar counts, every single one of it. And also there's my social media. You can check out Instagram, comment over, have a chat with me. But as always, we can also have a chat down here in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on future episodes and on my live streams, because I do live streams about my side projects that I'm working on. For example, Social Down. It's an app that helps you use Instagram better, and we just sit down together at an evening, listen to some cool music, play sometimes even games, chat. You work on your side project, I work on my side project, and we just are productive together. All right, that's it for today. I hope I see you in the next one. Bye.